All right, the meeting is recording. If you'd like to call us to order, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for making time today. Can people hear me okay?
Yep. You're a little fuzzy today.
Yeah, this new webcam I have, the sound isn't the greatest. I have to lean forward. Anyway, thanks for making time today. Let's do our roll call, Susan, and legally check everybody in.
Okay, well, let us do that. All right. So,
say here, the name is called.
All right. Oh, Commissioner Rubin.
Here.
I'm just going to see the people we see and add them in. Commissioner Isaacs.
Here.
Commissioner.
Here.
Is that a yes? Okay. Commissioner Morgan Nelson.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Martin. Peggy?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Kankamala.
Here.
Thank you. Rebecca, you're there. Commissioner Sorensen.
Here.
Great. Commissioner Piala.
Here.
Great. And I think that is what I have.
Tiffany is here.
Oh, Tiffany, you're there. Commissioner Shen.
Stay here.
Tiffany, are you there?
Here.
I have a question for you. Do you go by Shen or by Long?
Shen.
Okay, good, because it keeps showing up in your email as Long too. So, okay, super. Thank you. So I'll call those who I'm not. I'll call those I'm not seeing. Commissioner Chandler, not here. Commissioner Suko.
He's here.
Is Steve here? Commissioner Suko.
Here.
Hey, good, thank you. Let's see. And I think that's everybody.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so we're just, and Commissioner Klein.
He's not here.
Not here. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, call the meeting to order then, having done the roll. We need to approve the meeting agenda, which everybody should have, which today consists of our minutes from last meeting, reports and recommendations, comments from the chair and members, staff comments and adjournment. So we have somebody move to accept the agenda.
I would move.
Steve, that was you?
Yes.
Move.
We have a second on the agenda?
Rebecca, Commissioner Sorensen, seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
I gotta call the roll. I gotta call the roll.
Call the roll, sorry.
Yes. May I use just last names, please?
Please.
All right. This is to approve the minutes. Rubin?
Yes.
Isaacs?
Aye.
DiLorenzo?
Yes.
Morgan Nelson?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Kankamala?
Yes.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Piala?
Yes.
Shen?
You said yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Thank you. Chandler?
Yes.
Susan, are you there?
She's just showing up.
Hey, there she goes. So Susan, would you also say that you are present? And I'll change that.
I don't know what I'm saying yes to, but I just thought I'd say yes.
Yes, sounds good to me. We'll fill you in later. All right. Go.
Yes, we're approving
And-
the agenda, Susan. We're approving the agenda.
That's
Thank
exactly right. Thank you. And Commissioner Klein, not here. All right, thank you. The agenda is approved.
Great. Okay, now we need to approve last meeting's minutes. You all received a copy of them and they were posted. Anybody have any questions, comments, or additions or changes? Hearing none, no comments. Let's, somebody make a motion, please. Make a motion.
I move.
Accept the minutes as presented.
I move to accept the minutes.
Sorry, who is that?
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody wish to second?
I will second.
Heather,
Commissioner Isaacs?
is that you?
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
all right. We'll now take a vote in acceptance of last meeting's minutes.
All right, Ruben,
Aye.
Commissioner Isaacs,
Yes.
Commissioner DiLorenzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan Nelson. Thank you. Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Konkamala,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Piala,
Yes.
Commissioner Shen, Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Suko,
Yes.
and Commissioner Klein. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Great. The meeting minutes from the last meeting have been approved and accepted. Okay, before we get into any other agenda, we do have our two newest student commissioners here. Susan, I think in the name of time, you'll just ask each one of the two new commissioners just to introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself in terms of school interests and why you were interested in joining this commission.
I think that would be great.
Lauren, with Commissioner Piala, would you start, please?
Hi, I'm Lauren Piella. I am excited to be on this commission because fine arts are super important to me, and I'm so excited to help bring that to other people in our community. I love choir. The Edina Choir program is really important to me. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank
And
you.
we did, Chair Ruben, we did have a meeting with the two students.
Yes.
So I would like to add a question for them each to speak to, and that is, what is it about the commission that they now know that sounds particularly exciting? How's that?
Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
One thing that is exciting to me is that we are maybe going to work with Mosaic on some things, and I know that's a super great group, so I'm excited for that.
That's
Perfect.
great. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Shen.
Hi. So my name is Tiffany. I was interested in this commission because I've been with the arts my entire life. I love theater, I love singing, love choir, love the art center. So I just wanted to be involved. And something that excites me is, again, the Mosaic thing, but specifically the podcast, because I love listening to podcasts and I think it would be really cool.
Thank you. And it will be really cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right.
Welcome. And as we said during the orientation, we need your voice, we need your ideas, we need your involvement. And Shreya will be a great role model for the two of you to be involved and take leadership positions. So thank you very much for joining. Okay, let's go to reports and recommendations. And as Susan has reminded us appropriately, we today have to approve our work plan for next year because it needs to be turned in to the city tomorrow.
Right.
And
So-
without that, we would be remiss in doing our role. So you all received a draft set of initiatives for the work plan. And Susan is posting that on the screen and it is showing up perfectly.
Right. So if it would be okay, let me do just a little overview. Especially for our new student commissioners about the plan. So just some real basic things about the plan. We are to look at these initiatives. We are to determine whether, if you look in the top, the type of initiative, whether it's a project, whether it's an ongoing annual thing like Days of Remembrance for HRRC, or whether it's an event. And then the council charge will be filled out once we submit this. So we need, as you see, a title and a deliverable. We need to have people who are leads on each initiative. And we need to have a target completion date. We will also need to say, here's what this might cost, and here's the staff support we need, which might be communications department, it might be IT, it might be Park and Recs, it might be race, inclusion, and equity. So it could be a variety of things. This year, the work plans have gone, as you see, to progress reports quarterly. Last year, if you remember, we would just meet in a work session and update the council. This time we'll be doing that more frequently. We also, I think, need to remember that these need to be doable initiatives within a year. And although this year was an anomaly with much fewer meeting dates, we do only have 12 meetings. So in order to be able to make progress on our initiatives, we need to be able to use those meetings to get them and then move them through to completion. So we don't want to put together a work plan that is so ambitious that we can't complete things, but we do want to do things that we think are clearly the direction the commission has been heading in leadership of arts and culture. Is that a pretty good summary?
Definitely.
All right. So the process in this case was to take all of the things that you as commissioners forwarded to Russ or Peggy or to me and try and move them into things that are specific, concrete, and yet fit in the master plan that we have been part of. It still needs to fit into the big picture of what the Arts and Culture Commission believes should happen as they're charged to the city council. So Russ, maybe you could just walk each of these and then we'll come back and see what kind of comments we have.
Very good. Yeah, so we basically, and hopefully you had a chance to review them, 5 separate initiatives, a lot of similarity from last year, but with a bit of progress built into them. And first and foremost, the first initiative is to implement year 1. That went away, the screen. Anyway, in front of me. Implement year 1 of the Edina Public Art Plan by planning and hosting 1 or 2 public art activities events within the parameters of pandemic guidance in collaboration with key partners. And the deliverable is 1 or 2 public art activities. And this is straight out of the fabulous work that was done by Hannah and Michelle and aided by everybody else of the 3-year plan for public art. And so it really has borrowed completely from that plan. So now it's our job to pick out which of those items are going to happen. And we're on our way with Mosaic on a starting point, and we have to now get more specific. But as far as saying what the initiative is for next year, this is the level of detail we need to provide to council and staff. So let's go through them, and then we'll come back to each one by one to make sure everybody's in agreement and is kind of fully understands what we're trying to do with each initiative. Number 2 is to develop measures to assess access to and engagement in public art activities, events to inform future planning. And that again came out of the public art grid, that everything we need to do has to be measured, followed up, so we can keep improving and understanding what our constituencies are looking for and how we can better the work that we're already doing. So that one is how are we going to create an assessment form that where we have participants in each activity provide us the feedback to keep getting better and improving. Okay, number 3 is, I don't know how many of you spent time looking at the rubric that came in from HRRC, Human Rights and Relations Commission. Pretty extensive. I now know what the meaning of the word rubric is. I actually probably didn't fully understand that before. And our job is to develop a process for using that rubric in all of the work we do, public art activities and events. I think we'll also probably get involved with the HRRC as they start to trial out how they're going to apply the rubric to the City Hall and specific offices within City Hall. I think that should be something we don't need to specify at this point, but something we should aspire to do as they roll out their activities. And we need to put together a form that allows the HRRC to apply, to make sure that we're involved when our involvement is recommended. Number 4, kind of lengthy, but this one is to work with the Planning Commission by developing a procedure where we make sure that all significant public developments, and public developments means buildings or spaces created by the city for public use, and commercial projects of a certain size. We haven't denoted that, but commercial projects, so things done by developers, builders of a commercial nature, that provides opportunities for arts and decor elements that maintain the city's goals with things such as race, equity, and inclusion in their art and decor. A good example of that is Pentagon Village, where a very significant piece of art has been built on the grounds where a very thorough process was put in place for selecting an artist and identifying kind of the nature of the art that was constructed and erected there. I haven't seen it. I understand it already is in place. And we need to then, work with Planning Commission saying, what is that process actually going to be and look like? And then lastly, we are still the keepers, or I wouldn't say we are the keepers, but we have an active interest in the public art that already exists. So the inventory which we have in place pretty much right now. We need to work with staff because it's becoming staff responsibility for the maintenance and repair and identification of those public art pieces. But we can't let go of that, of our responsibility in making sure that we are playing an active role in not directing, but influencing what staff is doing with inventory from a maintenance and repair standpoint. So, and then there's a parking lot item, which I hadn't noticed until today, which is what's happening to the Edina Art Center in terms of a new space or a lease space or any other possible solutions to it. I actually saw one of the candidates that's running for city council mention the future of the art center in a pretty comprehensive review of what she saw as the issues facing the city in the next 12 to 24 months. So that is the review of the initial draft, or hopefully close to the final draft of this 2021's work initiatives. Any general comments or questions or concerns before we address any of each of them individually? Did we miss anything? Did we forget anything? Is there something that we're just way off base on?
Russ, this is Steve.
Yes, Steve.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and Susan and the other commissioners who worked so well to have this put together. It is a thankless task. So thank you for giving us something so well put together.
It's no longer thankless since you're thankless.
There you go.
Russ, this is Heather. I just wanted to know, I remember last year we had written up a number of initiatives, and then what came back was different and maybe fewer. So is that a possibility this year?
I think that, first staff will look at this and they've got a set of considerations, does it look doable? Can we really do this? I know a couple of years ago, we were asked to work with another commission, and that was new to us. I mean, we hadn't proposed that. I'm not sure that is something that will come back to us, but I guess it's a matter of whether this is realistic, whether it's the direction the city wants us to go, and whether if we need a great deal of money for it, whether we can actually afford to do it. So it may come back changed, exactly. And also, we're operating kind of in our sphere, which is what we should do, but there may be conversations happening in other commissions or with other staff that impact how we should be thinking, and we just don't know that now. So that information could come back in a revision as well.
Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah.
Any other overarching thoughts or comments? This is good stuff to hear this.
Russ and Susan, this is Susan. I noticed that we don't have any budget figures included, and are we requesting budget for any of this?
I think that's our conversation today, Susan.
Yeah.
If we are looking, for example, at the event in Initiative 1, are we going to need funding to do that? Are we going to need support? So we will have to make that decision today so that I can turn that in as part of the plan.
Great.
And Susan has been very good at saying to us, it just can't be a round number. It has to be a number that's supported by some level of detail so that we can defend it and support it as it gets reviewed by staff and by council.
Russ, this is Steve again then. With that in mind, I know you said you wanted it to be general Initiative 1, but don't we have two ideas like from I mean, how are we going to come up with a specific budget and stuff if it's this generic? So I thought the public art plan had and I thought based on what we were doing this year, we had a pretty clear idea, but maybe I misunderstood.
Michelle, are you able to speak to them?
Mute button. I agree with Steve that I think this kind of asking for a budget number when we don't know what we need to do. I think the idea with the prototype and why we're using that language specifically is that, the idea is you figure out what you need to do, just like kind of what is happening behind the scenes with the Mosaic event is that you're figuring out, we're going to need technology. We're going to need a good kind of website host or some sort of vendor that's going to be able to showcase the presentations or art. So you kind of, all of a sudden you start to have line items that support.
Oh, that's great.
Prototype. So I feel like, as Mosaic, as this event's coming together, we do have a stronger point of view of what it would take financially. But then I think for the other prototypes, which, haven't been selected, that's where, we're going to just have to figure out funding, and hopefully the city as in support for the growing and layering of what public art becomes in Edina, through this kind of, I would say it's a very, it's like a smart way to do it is testing out through community engagement, a few things at a time and creating that feedback loop. I think that's what's going to create more opportunities for the city to want to fund it. And also we can go out to other sources like the Edina Community Foundation if they're seeing the impact. But it's hard to ask for money at first or know what to allocate when we don't know quite what we're doing. So I think the first thing to get off the ground and get it supported is this partnership at Edina High School.
Can I ask you a question? Commissioner, would you rewrite initiative 1 to include the word prototype? Or do you think that this is clear enough?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's the only thing that concerns me. It concerns me a little bit about activity, I guess, is pretty vague. It sounds very scholastic in a way. I think it's neutral. Events kind of concerns me because, I mean, in a time of unprecedented challenges around event hosting, from the mayor to national events to, you know, literally planning an event is an absolute nightmare. I feel like putting that word in there too, it's basically like a socially distanced in-person event, which is a challenge even for compliance and making sure it's safe, especially as people go indoors. And then it's just a digital event. So yeah, in a way, I feel like because a lot of this stuff might not be a one night or 1 month gathering, it's actually, I do feel like there's going to be ideas that come up, and I think there were even on our sheet where things are kind of rolling or ongoing, or what if there was a art supply drive, or the city funded, we're giving out 300 sets of paint, you know, then it's not really, you know, I guess you could call that an activity. But that, yeah, I guess I would prefer to change it back to that, but, you know, events, activities, I think the event word kind of tripped me up because it feels like they know.
And I really understand what you're saying. It's just one of the choices we have in our initiatives to call things. So maybe I see what you're saying. Maybe we go to project.
Yeah, Susan, this is Susan, and that's what I was going to suggest is rather than saying event, tick the box project, rather than saying hosting, which again leads to people thinking it's an event, talk about planning and implementing 1 or 2 public arts activities, and then we will be able to consider things that are longer term, like Michelle is implying.
Right.
Would the podcast that one of the commissioners mentioned, would that be one of the potential activities?
Mm-hmm. I think it could be.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Steve. What I was thinking, and Shreya, I'd love for you to chime in on this, is given the delay and bumpy start to the school year and everything's kind of just been a bit delayed, I have every confidence that we'll get the website up and running for the Mosaic event, or project, I should say. But it might be smart to push the podcast to 2021, if that is a possibility. Do this just to kind of space it out a little bit and give us some time to make sure that happens. And I don't know how strict it is. I guess this is my question to you, between 2020 and 2021, that if we want to do the podcast, would we have to put it in 2021, or because if we miss the deadline in 2020, then how does that work? I guess, how strict are these deadlines?
Well, for one thing, it's as everybody knows, it's an odd year. So we're making this up as we go along. I think it would be absolutely fine to get started on this project and carry over some aspects of it into 2021. I think that would be just fine. And we don't necessarily even need to specify that until we actually ask for very specific budgeted funding for that project.
So we do that on this initiative then?
I think it could fit right under this with the word changes that are being recommended.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think pushing the podcast back, or at least thinking about it as happening in 2021, is probably a good idea. And thinking of the Mosaic partnership as an ongoing partnership rather than something that has to be cut off in 2020, right, I think helps with that framing. And I think it would fit under this initiative. So.
All right. I think so. And we'll have some time, everyone will have some time to talk about that particular project and our second agenda item. So if that makes sense with some word changes here, I think we're probably good. So we do need to determine leads on this. And we've been kind of talking to Shreya. Russ has talked to Shreya. Lindsay has been part of this. Hannah's been part of this. Peggy's been part of this. Michelle's been part of this. And Shreya kind of saw Lindsay as someone who had some good technical background, or at least able to find people with good technical backgrounds. So if everyone is comfortable, we can't leave Shreya as the only lead because she's a student commissioner and we need a voting member to do that. If we had co-leads on this one of Lindsay and Shreya. Anybody, any thoughts on that?
That's great, as long as Lindsay's okay with it.
I'm good. I'm good. Yes.
Okay, good. And that wasn't a surprise to her. I emailed her a little bit earlier, so. Okay, so that's good. Why don't we come back and do a little budget work? Well, okay, so let's do it right now. I'm taking it back. Let's do it right now. So we know we've got 1 or 2 prototype activities that we're going to do. We also know that there are other things that we might want to spend money on, like repair of public art that needs work, or the reconstruction of the eye and the eye and Idina sculpture. So what makes sense here? And we can be a little bit of a more round number for the initiative, and then for the project itself, we'll have to be much more specific. What would you recommend?
What was the budget for Mosaic to date? Like, what did we settle on there?
I don't think we settled on it.
The budget yet. I think that'll be determined by next meeting, because we need to talk a little bit more with Mosaic to have a really clear picture of what exactly they want in the gallery. So depending on the software and the technology needs and any needs for like a virtual event, the cost would be dependent on that. So it's kind of hard to tell what that would look like.
Is there like a range at all though? Just like something to put our head around? Like, have you heard any numbers at all?
I mean, for a website, I've gotten some numbers anywhere from $1 to $750 to $1,500 to produce a website. Podcasts, I don't have a lot of numbers on, but I'd say probably a few thousand for that. And that's just the tech side of it. That does not include marketing.
Yeah.
Other things.
I'm just wondering if we couldn't just it's better to put a number of some sort. And I know, Susan, you want it to be precise, but then they shouldn't ask for this in September.
I don't think it has to be for this. When we say this is the project, here's what we need, then it will have to be pretty detailed. Here, if we've got some idea, just like we're talking about, that this is what's going to be needed, I think that's a number that we can use here.
But I defer to the commissioners who are leading it, but I assume that they would have more comfort from having an actual number there that was significant.
Yes.
That can be backed off of. And this is our number 1 initiative, right? So.
Yeah, that was my question, is do we overshoot a bit and then be happily surprised if we have a surplus?
Well, people will look at that and people will say, what do they need $100,000 for? And I won't have an answer. So honestly, as much as we can be realistic, I think is good.
More of like 5 or 9, but
yeah, I wasn't thinking 100. I was thinking 5.
Well, I'm gonna just make an assumption that for this particular initiative, that the startup costs are going to be more, but there would be ongoing. Or I'm assuming we would want to keep the website and or the podcast going if they attract interest. And so in subsequent years, we would have to think about putting a budget in to maintain those items, wouldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And then that would probably be less. So it's, so I'm guessing this year would be higher. And then thinking about for the subsequent years, some kind of maintenance budget. And so that the council would understand that would be an ongoing expense for future years.
So what at the top number we've got right here is $4,500 without any marketing cost built in. Does that give you ideas?
just curious with this project, has the Mosaic team looked at ways that the city's resources could work towards some of the goals of the project? I'm just sensitive to the fact that the city's budget is in pretty bad shape at the moment. I overheard the conversation between Parks and Rec, the Arts and Culture Commission this summer, where they basically said that the liquor sales and the golf and Paymar are pretty much keeping our city afloat right now. So I just think we just have to be super conscious of each dollar we're spending. And I know, I'm just wondering what other resources we have within the high school, within our own connections that could help bring this to life, because I really think it's amazing and would love to see it. I'm just concerned high budget is sort of going to be challenging.
And, we're going to, again, we're talking about this in our next agenda item, but we don't have any of that information yet. We have not gone far enough to know that. What the high school does, how we don't know that. So we're going to have to make some general guesses about what is logical for next year without really a lot of, a prototype budget. We don't have that for these projects yet.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's some bullets that we would expect any project to require, be it marketing, be it production, be it artwork, be it, I don't know, record keeping and analysis. So those bullets are ones that we can just create, not create, but use and keep some placeholder money for each one of them. They all make sense, whether they're accurate or not, we don't know, but they're reasonable to expect, and we need to pick reasonable funds. What we've never gone into the project is where we say, for our initiative, we're going to get funds from another resource, be it a community fund or some other group that has funds to support activities like this. Should we go into some idea like that, saying we'll source half the money from the city's budget, half the money from another benefactor?
Yeah,
I think internally we can do that. I think all they really need to know right now is what our request of the city would be.
Yeah. Well,
could we
go in with asking them for everything we would potentially need without, if we don't go in expecting to get those funds from the resource. We can't go in asking for 50% of the new.
Right. Could we do something like 20,000 for the budget for the whole Mosaic project?
If we use that number, we have no money for anything else. That is the absolute top money that is allocated to public.
Oh, okay.
And we haven't even been able to request specifics yet. So we don't know that all that would be allocated to what we're doing. But we have.
In my opinion, that should be our starting point, 20,000. That's what we've gotten year after year after year. We go in and ask for less on our, I would hesitate to do that. I would rather have the city come back and say, listen, we are funding 63% of all requests. And so we're giving you 63% for $12,600 instead.
All right, I have a suggestion. Let's move forward because that'll give us a sense of what other things we want to be able to ask for support with.
Okay.
All right, so thank you for this and thank you for the lead.
Yeah, and thank you for everybody's great work on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And also flexibility during the pandemic. My goodness, the whole plan had to change, and thanks to Hannah and Michelle for really rethinking that in the time of COVID. It's wonderful. All right, our second initiative, Chair Rubin.
Yeah, to develop measures to accept, this is basically a survey tool, either qualitative or quantitative, to follow up on the work as we're doing it, and allows us to inform future work. I'll go back to Michelle again, then to say, Michelle, what were your thoughts here? And I think it's kind of self-explanatory. I don't think it needs a lot more definition, but maybe from a budget and a resource standpoint, we can discuss that.
Roofing that's happening at my house. It's a good thing. Yeah, so for this, the link in a little bit. I mean, I think what this is that we really need to measure and not create that feedback and forms what we do and what we want to try to clean. You know, also figuring out, okay, that with it, many people ask, you're kind of proving the value on. So yeah, I mean, I think just the key here is to develop measures to assess the engagement. We have access to, yeah, for part of me, it's tied in with the initiative or the project, as we're going to call it. It's got to be tagged to that. We're going to measure on it.
And we could have, Michelle, I'd love your opinion on this. We could have just rolled that into initiative 1 and say, implement year 1. But it felt a little bit to us as we were talking through this, it was a different way of looking at the public art plan, and maybe different leads or different small groups, but it doesn't have to be separated out. It just felt like it was different than creating a project.
The one thing I like about this, I'm not sure exactly, but I would create a little bit of rigor in terms of, again, we're just a little event, and that's what we're doing. It adds a little bit of the groups to be actively thinking about programmatically what's missing and what services or what needs we can help cultivate on behalf of raising the profile of Art Edina. So there's something there. I don't know if it's exactly this, but there is something there about having this group think together, with city council, with the mayor, strategically about what needs public art could meet. I almost think there's that level of ongoing agenda item for us to be trying to engage with other groups, Parks and Rec. So I feel like it's a little bit different. I feel like we should be automatically measuring the event, but I feel like there's something else here that
how about, I see what you're saying, Michelle. You're making so much sense tonight. I love it. So maybe it's something either in place of or in addition to inform future planning. Maybe it's not just planning, maybe it's like an ongoing vision or something that kind of keeps us collaboratively working with others.
Yeah, I feel like we could formalize more of that trying to do last year of meeting with the other, we were doing it, meeting with the other commissions. For example, kind of finds out, that we have isolation, going into year 2 of a pandemic. I mean, what if public art we swoop in, have a miraculous, cure anecdote to that. But it's good to know those issues and be constantly figuring out, if we can, if art in all its forms can help play a role or, do something. I don't know. It's a little.
I keep hearing Doug saying this is going to be a rolling plan. And I think that's where you're going with this, is that the plan itself is formed now with what we've tried now and what we know to be out in the world now. But even that is subject to assessment and change as we try things out.
Yeah, this almost seems like a filter or a rubric, a brand filter, whatever you want to call it, for the future planning. So if you come up with what each year you could update it, but if you come up with what those measures might be, that might work.
And I wrote exactly that. I wrote rubric down. I like filter as another word for it. As long as we know that this is more comprehensive than the event or the project, I think I'm getting. So if you're comfortable, let me play around with some words on that.
Great.
Okay.
I would also just quick. I would suggest to the earlier comment that this is something the city though should be able. We should be able to utilize city resources to build, because I mean we shouldn't have to come out of pocket to develop. But I don't know what other commissioners who've struggled through this our public art process would say about that. But
so
if I can ask too, yeah, I agree with Steve. I think it should be with the city, with leadership there. But I know we rubric was kind of used with the HRRC. Maybe we should say something more like themes or guidelines, and maybe we should use a different word. I don't want us to get tripped up on that. That sounds very, to me, a little bit rigid and kind of rule setting, whereas it's more about understanding some of the needs and the trajectory of the city and making sure that we are in pace with with sightlining as important issues, and we're using art as a vehicle to try and achieve that.
I think we owe the city and ourselves some feedback as to how we are impacting the broad citizenry and people who work here and all that stuff. When previous life, when we had to measure sponsorships or certain kinds of promotions, they're very hard to measure. So we would tend to say how many people got exposed or how many people participated, and the buying power or spending power that they represented. And I think we owe it to ourselves to say, well, 4 people showed it. If only 4 people saw it. Only 4 people saw it. Well, it probably wasn't worthwhile, because we need to touch enough people. So we just need to bring some rigor and let the city know and staff know that we are attending to that this is capable of touching enough lives that it's worth doing. And then as we get smarter, we'll touch more lives, and we'll even have a greater impact than we did initially.
This is Susan, and I apologize if somebody already commented on this. I was distracted for a minute, but are we also not just developing something, but implementing them? Are we going to use whatever is created to assess the public art activities that are initiated?
So it's almost as though we'll pilot the measures once we've drawn them up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's some active activity there. It's not just developing them so that they sit on a shelf, but we're stating clearly that we plan to use them.
Okay. So what we're really going to, the deliverables, not only how we're assessing, but how it worked with whatever we do for next year and reporting the results of that. Correct?
Keeping an eye on the time. So Susan, do you have enough guidance on that one? You think these two to rework them for submission?
Ask me the question again, Russ. I'm sorry.
Do you have enough feedback from everybody to?
Yes, I'm comfortable with this. I think we can do it. Again, think a little bit about budget requirements. In our work plan, I believe this is one of the, or in our public art plan, I believe this is one of the things where we also talked about a working group. So it may be that we have people outside of our commission working with us on this aspect of things as well. So just another thought. We don't need to write that in.
Yeah.
Is there a budget required for this then?
In general, yes. Lindsay, you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just, yeah, what would the budget go towards with this? Like, what would the monetary needs be?
That's my question.
Well, if you're looking at measuring public engagement, I mean, I guess, there are numbers that you will find for, a live event on one of the social media channels, but it depends on how in depth you want to go with your analytics. And in that case, I think you would want to have a budget to measure. I mean, we could talk to any marketing person on here. I don't know. I'm guessing that we could, again, piggyback on resources already in place by the city when we do hold some sort of public event. And that's where I'm thinking maybe it wouldn't be necessary, but I'm just saying if you are trying to really measure, then, you know, we just would need to be really resourceful and creative, I guess, if we didn't have a budget.
So we do have that line, thank you very much. We do have that line right beneath that asks if we need staff support. And that could be, as I mentioned, communication support, IT support, whatever. So maybe that's what we're asking for at this point.
Isn't this an initiative we had talked about earlier this summer, and I think even earlier, Douglas had mentioned, we want to find a way that the questions or the information we're getting is quantifiable or qualitative, objective. I know I'm not thinking of the right words now, but that we might need someone to design a survey, or that the questions are validity and reliability.
Yes,
and quantitative.
we did.
Yeah, so we might need to hire a resource for that, or I don't know if there's someone in the city that does that kind of data analysis. So I think that would be why there might be a budget item for this.
So when we discussed this, when we were first going to do the survey with the first rendition of our public art plan, we looked at the Better Together platform. We asked about resources. And I learned during that time that really we do not have that survey researcher as part of our city structure. So if we wanted to do that, we would need to go outside of the staff support required and request something in that budget line.
I think this initiative entails a lot more work than it comes off across, because I mean, to develop measures to figure out what engagement is like and what citizens want, there are a lot of measures you need to take in terms of making sure it's equitable and making sure that you're reaching everyone and making sure that the method you're using is adequate. And I think that was the problem that we ran into when we were talking about it earlier this year, because there was a conversation for months where we would bring up a new issue about a different type of method, whether it was like surveys or focus groups. And then there's the question of how we frame questions about making sure it's equitable to people with disabilities or people who, you know, may have language barriers. And that's something that I'm concerned about, because I do think that will take a lot of effort if there's not support in the city for someone who does manage statistics or some data analyst. That's just something I was thinking about.
So again, I completely agree with you, Shreya. Again, maybe that's why this is a smaller initiative for this coming year, and that is to just start developing a process that looks at the engagement and access that we've had just to the events that we are planning to implement next year. So maybe, since we haven't done this yet, maybe it's a small look and we simply relegate it to those prototype things that we're going to work on next year. And then, as I think, Michelle, you were saying pretty eloquently, maybe that rolls into a much larger look at what we're doing with public art and how people are responding and what supports we need. So maybe in next year, again, this is manageable. We just look at the prototyped activities, which is kind of what this says.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't take it bigger next year.
The measures for this are likely to be observational. They're not going to be quantitative for sure. We don't have the ability to do that. So observational can mean number of people, length of time involved, some demographics or insights into who that actually is. And that could be more than sufficient.
Mhm.
Okay, can we, Susan, right now, we're depending upon you to kind of coalesce all this feedback.
Okay, I will do that. This is a great conversation. I do need people who are going to serve as leads for this, however.
I'm willing to attach my name to that with somebody
Okay.
else.
Thanks, Russ.
I can help Russ with this.
Great, thank you.
Heather, thank you so much. I think this actually could be a fun initiative to work on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
number 3 is how we're going to get involved with the rubric and make sure that we're paying attention to that. So,
you know what, Russ, could we invite Peggy, who's had some conversations with Heidi? Could we invite Peggy to talk a little bit about this?
Please.
Sure. I think that one should be pretty straightforward, that the HRC will kind of lead that, and we can participate in filling out the rubric, making sure that it's being fulfilled as they look toward art distribution in city spaces.
And I think you had some nice kind of questions that would help people to fill out that rubric.
Yes, so we did, I did send some more questions to Heidi just based on making sure that we're looking at, you know, what kind of artists we would, what kind of art, what kind of artists, who they are, what the, you know, the look and feel of the building is, lots of different questions that we could add to that as well as what they already have on the list.
Great.
So I have a question about this initiative. What is the difference between initiative 3 and 4? Because I understand there's a little bit of a wording difference, but to me, it doesn't seem like they're different enough that they need to be 2 different initiatives. I think it's almost dangerous that initiative 3 is on its own, because just trusting that you're making sure that you're meeting the needs of a rubric, I don't think is enough. I think you need to have like a planning component within that. So almost, to me, it makes more sense if they're both in one initiative. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but
no, I think you're bringing up a good point, Shreya. Number 4, I see as really public art in city development, and making sure that somehow arts and culture is at the table when decisions are made about developments.
Yeah.
Number 3, I felt like was just operationalizing the rubric that was out there. And since it really is an HRRC rubric, I mean, they're really the owners of that. How does arts and culture, how does it use it? And how do we recommend people use that rubric?
I guess in a way that we kind of already did that. I mean, because when Shreya and I were involved in it earlier this year, so I think we'd have to ask Arts and Culture or HRC, but maybe we fulfilled that already. And then
as we're talking about, maybe we don't need this.
Yeah,
maybe we don't need this initiative at all.
yeah.
Okay.
I think the point of us being involved with that development was that it's done. But
and Shreya, I like your point a lot that this sort of sets it apart rather than having it be part of everything that we're doing as an Arts and Culture Commission. So I take that
exactly.
point. So if everybody's comfortable with that, we will remove number 3. Okay, super.
And just to number 4, that's one that I've been pushing pretty hard. And I actually went and presented to the Planning Commission last year, or this year. The need for the Planning Commission is they get all of these projects that show up on their doorstep, and they meet every 2 weeks because there's so much going on. For the larger projects, be they city financed parks or green spaces, or developer financed or TIF financed larger developments, there needs to be some consideration of arts and culture in all of those activities. And so to me, this one is sort of new, and I think to be significant in the way the city in total addresses arts and culture. And it's not just sculpture. As we present to the planning commission, their mind always turns to sculpture. We have to help disabuse them of that notion. So this is when I'll fall on a spear for.
Russ, it's Rebecca. I'd love to work with you on this one.
I'd love for you to run it.
Oh, no. I was involved with the Planning Commission as someone on a small area plan working group. And I agree with you. There's a lot of give to get, and there is so much development in our city. And I don't think that they spend enough time thinking about public spaces, green spaces, public art, all of these things. So I'm very excited to jump into this with you.
All right, thank you. This feels to me like it's not a budget request. Am I missing something? This
No.
feels to me like it's thinking, conversations, putting something on paper that we recommend to planning.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's as simple as anytime there's a project over $500,000 of commercial development, or anytime that there's a significant change to a city space, that there's a part of their process that they go through in those meetings is that there's an arts and culture consideration step.
Hey, I think so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, number 5, Susan.
So we really have been asked to move this maintenance and repair into staff work plans. So Russ, maybe you could talk a little bit about why you think this needs to still be an initiative.
Well, again, I think we're the stewards of art and culture. And to make it that there needs to be some provided recommendations and insights from our point of view as to what's important in the inventory, what's less important, and what the role of that art should be. Should it be permanent? Should it be temporary? Should it be repaired, or should it just be removed and let it go to waste? So I see that as part of our role and responsibility, and not just a staff function.
Right. And just so everybody remembers, it is in our work plan this year as well. And I started thinking we could actually start some of that before the snow flies. If there were a couple of people who'd like to take lead on this, and we'll either go out as a masked group or we'll go out separately and take a look at some of these things and update the report that we got several years ago and have some recommendations.
Well,
so we could even start some of this now.
One of the new students involved in that.
That'd be fun.
Can I ask a question about this though? If it was told to be moved to staff, doesn't that therefore mean then that there should be city budget for it as opposed to the commission budget? So I'm just trying to understand, like we're not like diluting our budget request by, because this thing has never moved forward because there's never been any money for it. It's been we've been talking about it for 4 years, I think.
Well, I think there actually is money, but we didn't request specifics. And we started to realize, so Tom Shirley and I did a report on this, and Tom said, we've got all these platforms and we've put numerous sculptures on. There are holes in them. The integrity of the platform isn't there anymore. That I think is all the staff stuff we need to do. But if you wanted to leave this on as initiative, it might be a recommendation of priorities more than anything.
Yeah, we're not going to manage the work itself, but we input into where the priorities should be. Yeah.
I kind of question this one as well, only because I'm not sure what set of criteria we would use to prioritize, and we don't have the money, nor would we actually be directing the work.
Right.
So I'm wondering if it does muddy the water to to have this inserted in our work plan.
I am 50-50 on this. I could see both ways of going.
I mean, I'm super happy if we're actually going to do something. I didn't know that was actually that we're going to start taking care of this stuff. So if that's staff's responsibility, that's great. Personally, I think so. Congratulations.
Yeah, but here's my cynical side, though. What if it comes down to just cost, and A and B cost $800 to fix, and C and D cost $4,000 to fix, and it becomes an economic decision rather than an artistic or a cultural decision? To me, I want to be part of that conversation.
I mean, I guess my pushback on that, Russ, would be is personally, I think the city. I don't know if I feel well, and I guess I'm not the lead on this, but I don't know if I'm in a better position to assess whether or not a piece of art should be saved or not. My perspective is it's all part of the city's patrimony. I mean, or not patrimony, the city's, received, these are gifts or ideas the city spent money on. They should be taking care of it just like they try to take care of everything. It should just be the maintenance. I was actually going to suggest we have a different policy, which is the city does no more public art unless they provision enough money to take care of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Steve, my feelings echo yours just a little bit as well, because I'm not sure how I would say, oh, we should fix this one rather than that one. Is it personal taste? Is it how badly it needs fixing? Is it, a popular piece in Edina lore? I'm not sure what our criteria is. And then if it just comes down to dollars, perhaps it's better decided by the Arts Center. I don't know. I'm just a little bit torn. I completely agree that I want stuff fixed. I completely agree with Steve that we shouldn't be commissioning or adding anything to the collection until we can take care of that which we already own as a city. But I'm just not quite sure of our role and our ability to carry it out in a responsible way.
Well, and Susan, your point about that, your recommendation, don't add to the collection unless there's maintenance dollars and responsibilities built in, that could actually be part of our number one. I mean, we could make those recommendations as we play out our public art plan as well. It doesn't have to be an initiative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like tying old collections that now are a maintenance problem for the city. And I agree with Susan, I agree with Steve that it should be passed over the city as part of fixing a cracked sidewalk that someone could get hurt on, as far as fixing an eyesore as the city is, very on top of. So I feel like it's these sculptures, which were part of a sculpture program that ran, that was private donations, whatever, that is the city maintenance role now. And I agree that I personally don't feel qualified to assert, which stays and goes. I think it's about, it does come down to a city decision. And I agree that the city though should be aware that they, taking on any new donated art comes with a cost that goes forward, right? There is the maintenance cost that I think we've brought to their attention, or we can by submitting that report. I remember doing work sometime last year where I pulled out, okay, these are the ones in the worst shape. This is the approximate cost. You add a little bit for inflation. I think that's what we can give to them and then be done with that. And then in terms of new positions, that's where we can play a greater role of just saying, just so you know, are we planning this to be a 10-year piece or a 100-year piece for Edina? You have to think about maintenance, what kind of pad it's on, all that kind of stuff that we've learned through this discussion. But to carry this over and then to muddy it with our public art program, which is more about people and engagement, not sculptures that maybe be tied to the patrimony, as Steve said. I think we're looking forward with public art to bring new thinking, ideas, and representation. And this collection, beautiful or however you feel about it, has been there and should be honored through repair, but it doesn't have anything to do with, I think, where we're going and how the city has evolved.
Okay.
So I honestly think that city staff would support what you just said.
Okay.
That it really is up to us to figure out how to protect and take care of the things that we own. So
Here, can I just add one point, and I agree it should come off. Can we every 6 months ask for an update as to what is going on with this existing public art?
you know what? I think that's fine. I can put that into my work plan, is just to report back, update people.
Yeah, because to me, it's like, well, okay, we no longer have responsibility for the art center. And so we'll just wash our hands and disavow any involvement. I mean, to me, this is part of what we do and what we care about.
So let me ask you a question then. Just because we haven't done anything recently, although staff has, but the commission hasn't, about our parking lot item here. I wanted to reinforce what the language says. So we've considered them as a board and commission, but we haven't proposed them. If you want to work on them, we'd have to go back and get approval from council. So if there is movement on new physical space for the art center, right now we aren't charged, because we didn't write this into the plan, with being part of that. So if we are saying maintenance and repair of public art sculptures is a staff issue, and we're taking that initiative out, do we want some language that said we'd still like to be part of the consultancy for any kind of new or leased space for the art center? Do we want to put that back in as an initiative?
I'm conflicted about it, Susan. I think it's a great question. I am not wanting us to just let it go, but I also don't know if this is the right year to, push that on there when we actually have some things that we would prefer to be focusing on, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that we can thread the needle and reference that, as you say, have it be, let's say, really what we want is to be part of the conversation should the conversation arise. It likely won't in the next 12 months, given this, as Rebecca referenced, the city's financial situation, the economy generally, but I also hate to just have us be silent on it. So is there some way to still stick our foot into that water without committing to, wanting to sort of direct everybody's attention to it when we really have other very worthwhile things to focus on?
I think you're looking at it in a very interesting way. I'd love to hear from other people on that.
Well, I clearly have an opinion on this. To me, it's another step in kicking the can down the road. And boy, oh boy, I just, even if it's not replacing it, but coming up with a new modern solution to dealing with it, I think that has to be an ongoing conversation. And I view that as part of our role and responsibility in making sure that conversation is taking place. Keep in mind that there's going to be a very major turnover of council people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so a topic like this, which is kind of binary, it's either there or not there, will become really vacant. And I don't know, if we're not going to encourage the city to talk about it, I'm not sure who is. There are a lot more people talking about sports and bike paths and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Russ, I agree with you, Russ. Susan, the reports that were done about the condition of the current art center, demonstrating the fact that it's not functional from building code and many other standpoints. Has that conversation just completely dropped off since the pandemic?
It's lessened, but I mean, that report went to council in June. So we've continued to, not very intensely, but we've continued to think about other spaces. Russ was able to join us at the vacated Chuck E. Cheese place as one place we looked. Everything will certainly be dependent on budget and what we can do. So I would say it's not a dropped conversation. It's hard to do that with so many other things going on in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So, we kind of have two choices. We either have a facility or we have programming in other parts of the facility, which is what the Art Center is going to start doing in October. We'll have some workshops in other city facilities. So it's really kind of one or the other. And if the commission still likes the idea of an Edina Center, then perhaps writing an initiative that says, I like the way you said it, Susan, part of the conversation, if there is a conversation. I don't think that's how I want to write it, but.
Yes, I do think we need to have something on here. I agree with what Russ said. The fact that it seems like it's untenable to go back to the art center. I mean, in many ways, it's untenable even once the pandemic ends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the city leadership will be comfortable having people go back in there knowing what they now know. And so if we want to help them keep thinking about and guiding them towards some alternatives, you're right, we do need to have some sort of initiative on here.
All right, let me try and, if people would like that, let me try and craft something. I'll remove, as Michelle says, let's just be done. We've offered a report on the repair needed to sculptures. Let's be done with that. Move on with where public art is going. And I'll replace this one with some language that says, continue to serve as a advocate and consultant on possible new or leased spaces, something like that.
And I just wonder too, as everything in the world is getting disrupted and we're starting a new direction or venture with public art, is it time, I don't know, is it time for the Art Center to evolve, or as we do programming and find out what the community wants, will that lead an evolution of what the Art Center is?
Sure.
That might change where it is or how it is.
Sure.
Yep, it sure could.
Yeah.
So let's make a conscious decision about it. Let's not just spade.
Could you say that again, Russ?
You just don't want to make, let's make a conscious decision. Maybe it should evolve, but let's not make it evolve because we just forgot about it. Now we have to jerry rig something else.
Right. It might become more organic as we find out what people want. Maybe the idea of the video and podcast arts or other forms of art takes off and community citizens want something different. Maybe they say, we've had pottery, we've had painting, we like those, but we want more of something else, or we want to explore something else completely different.
Right.
May I ask if other commissioners have thoughts about this? Because it's a fairly large issue.
I don't think this year is the year to have any tangible actions on it. But I do think if there is any conversation, I agree that we should probably be part of it. Or we should be a little bit more firm with the data of the Art Center and the need for an Art Center, maybe putting something together to say that again. I know there's already been a report, but just so there's consistent action.
what if we use terminology, the evolution of the Art Center, and made it less about a building or more about the concept?
Yeah, and I would also say, Art Center programming, because with what we've learned, around the pandemic, I mean, you literally cannot socially distance within the current footprint.
Right.
So it's really more about, though, the programming. And I feel like that's what's really what we care passionately about, is that people who want to experience art through classes, through artist openings and all the things and the programming that has happened and all the new things that could happen. I think that's where we have the time right now with the pandemic. In a way, it's made you slow down and rethink certain things. And I think the programming is going to be key. And you have this, I mean, at least we know, living in Minnesota for the next 6 months, it's going to be tough to go here for a while. So, the really thinking about programming, which informs space and thinking that way. And so, not to diminish the fact that, there was a cool facility. It doesn't really work even in the post-pandemic world, because we know so much more about aerosols, for example. But it's really thinking about, how do you make the Art Center programming survive and thrive and evolve? And that's a much more, I think, interesting conversation for the commission to be supporting versus the Art Center, which is really the city and Parks and Rec. It's a different dialogue.
That's really good. That's really good.
All right, I'll craft something.
As kind of an example, the Minnesota Center for Book Arts, a place also that usually is very physical. I had to go into the studio and create books, but they've obviously pivoted real quickly, and everything is virtual, and it's been astounding. They now have people from all over the country, or actually the world, taking classes because they don't have to come to Minneapolis. And the teaching artists, they do virtual studio tours, and it's not something I would have ever imagined happening. And I participated in a virtual class. I didn't think, how is this going to work? I really did not think that class would work on Zoom, but it was fun. It actually ran better than I thought, and I will probably try other ones. And so that's just one example of an art organization that's made an evolution for this time, and will probably continue in some form as well.
That's great.
Like it. All right. I will craft some language around that. Thank you. So we do have one other agenda item, Chair Rubin, but I'm still feeling a little bit like I'm unclear about what the commission hopes for Initiative 1 budget request.
So one thing that I wanted to mention is, when we were talking about Initiative 2, if we're piggybacking on Initiative 1 and making sure that our planning is based on what is happening during Initiative 1 and what people think about our prototypes or our projects, I think the budget should be, if that makes sense.
So give me your best thoughts on a request.
I mean, what are the elements that will have cost? Artwork, website,
Tech support, marketing materials, ongoing maintenance, and like I said, if it's a podcast, it's producing that once a month or however many times you do. So there'll be a lot of costs. I mean, what's the highest we can go on this, given all the other initiatives?
What do we have left, Susan?
But we have not specified numbers yet.
No, but that's true. This is next year.
But
well, we typically had $20,000, $7,500 of it usually went to the Rockin' Hollywood's Valentine party, which is definitely not happening this year. So I think we have the ability to ask for up to 20,000, but again, who knows?
You know what,
Susan, is the budget fluid? Not in terms of getting more money, but let's just say that we apportion $10,000 for this, $10,000 for something else, and we don't use all of the $10,000 or can it flex between initiatives? Do you know what I mean?
And we just have
Okay.
to, we'll have to redo the request for using the funding
Okay.
and get approval from them.
Lindsay,
And this, my approval, or what I would need from the commission is detailed planning around a project, not around this initiative, that I would take to my supervisors, and whatever their limits are on approval of funding, if they can go to that extent. If it's higher than that, it goes further up into the management of the city or to city council. So it just depends on what we're asking for.
And I just suggest we put the $20,000 in on initiative 1. I don't think anything else requires the money. And the way you rewritten 2, it's going to be fulfilled by doing 1. I mean, if the most we can ask for is 20, and this is the whole purpose of the commission right now, I know.
Let's do it, and we'll get a response from the city. Let's do that. Okay. You guys, this was amazing. Great conversation.
Do we need to ask Shreya or Lindsay or someone for an update on Mosaic?
I'm sorry, Chair Rubin. I do need a lead for this, a lead or two for the new one that we're going to write about the Art Center.
I think Susan Chandler and I should do that.
You're on. Thank you, guys. All right, go ahead, Russ.
Steve, you just voluntold me.
I loved it.
That's what happens.
All right.
You gotta be quick with the unmute button, Susan. You gotta be quick with the unmute button.
Thank you, Steve. Proud to serve with you.
All right, Russ, you want to go on to our next item?
Yeah. So just an update on the collaborative project. Shreya or Lindsay?
Shreya, did you want to say?
Yeah, for sure. So there hasn't been a lot of development just because of Mosaic starting with school starting, but we have been in communication with the advisor for Mosaic and for some of the students. So we do have members there who are interested. And in these next upcoming weeks, we're going to be talking about the planning for the project. We'll probably get a better idea of what exactly this virtual gallery will entail and a little bit more of a timeline, as well as a budget, which will be outlined.
So it's hard. That's why it was hard to outline a budget, because Mosaic still has not met. And you can imagine what the start of school was in every high school in this country this year. So it's not surprising. But I think if Lindsay and Shreya are kind of co-leads on this, I have also emailed Mr. Pataski at Mosaic last spring. So we can kind of work together, the three of us, to have something ready for the next meeting that will give us a little bit of a timeline, some ideas about what we can accomplish this year and what we do kind of roll into our initiative 1 for next year.
Anybody else want to add anything to that? To this project? Great. Thank you.
I would like to add, please take a look at what I sent today. I had just gotten the notice of the stories videos, and there just may be something there that makes us think a little bit about this particular project.
Yeah, thanks for sending those, Susan. Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. So I have one last question, Chair Rubin. At the very bottom of our work plan, we can request, whether or not it fits into the schedule or not, when we meet with City Council on our work session. So this year it was, I think we had asked for September. We're going to be pretty far along in our projects by then, but we weren't. So do you want an early meeting as early as June, or do you want that, joint session to be a little further along in the year? You see, they can go all the way through November.
I would suggest September or October. But that's just me. Anybody else have thoughts?
Well, I think it's good to have completed some things, or at least be in progress with some things, but also to have a little time to get some feedback. So that might make some sense. If we meet in September, in all likelihood, the same thing is going to happen that we've got going on right now, is the 2022 planning. So maybe we back it up or put it forward a month, but not maybe in the same time frame.
Well, I mean, assuming we'll have a semi-normal summer next year, meeting in August is tough. Because everybody's out and about and doing their thing. So if September's not wise, how about October?
Anybody else? Okay, I think we've not got another opinion, so I'm okay with that.
Susan, the presentation, I think we have a meeting coming up in early October. The purpose of which is to.
We have a meeting on October 7th. That day did change, Russ, October 7th, and that is for the chair to present to council the plan we're working on right now.
Right. I have still not received any formal.
No, nobody did. So I asked Perry and he informed his chair. So I'm informing you as well.
Okay.
I'll send you a calendar invitation. How about that?
Good. And can everybody join?
This is chairs.
Can they observe?
So I don't know if since it will be a virtual one, I believe. I don't know what that will be. I'll ask that question.
It'd be great. I mean, it's great to have everybody. Okay. All right. Anybody, we've run out of time, but are there any other things that folks would like to discuss? Otherwise, Susan, do you have any quick update of what you've been working on and the status of your program?
Yeah, a couple things. Last Thursday and right now, we are hosting a huge pottery sale in Rosland Park in conjunction with the farmers market. I must tell you, it made me ecstatic to spend time with people looking at art and talking about art, and happy to be out and actually doing something and interacting about art. It reminded me of why we do what we do. It just felt so good. I think there's one more. They're going to extend farmers market into next week, so we'll do it once again. And it's not even so much as a fundraiser, although we're taking revenue from it. It's really just to say we're still here, and this is kind of one of the things we do. We would have had all of this pottery on sale at the Fall into the Arts Festival, which of course, like every other one, was not done this year. So it was super. It was just super to be out. We also have a set of workshops scheduled instead of classes, and they are pretty much one-offs or maybe 2-day sessions. They will start mid-October, and they will be in facilities across the city. So rather than all fine art, there's also some high craft built in, some makers things. We've even got some planned for when the snow comes to make snow-dyed silk scarves. So hopefully we can find ways to pull together to make art in community safely as kind of our phase one. And I really appreciate Heather's comments about the book center. I think our phase two will be to see what kind of virtual delivery we can do.
Yeah, it's amazing. They've had some of the things they've done that can't be in the studio, but have done live demos of screen printing, marbling. I can't think of some other ones. So even though people can't participate, they get a chance to at least watch.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely possible for us. And
Yeah, and the people facilitating those too would kind of send out like PDFs of, if you want to set up a home screen printing studio, here's what you can purchase and need, or for marbling. So it's a little bit of, if not interaction, some next steps for people.
cool. Thank you. So that's my update for now, Russ.
Thank you. Okay, in recognizing the time, just two last things. One is, I think Susan Chandler and Stephen, you missed the news. Douglas Hegley, our old buddy, is returning to the Met as the head of digital marketing there. He's going back to New York City. And so that's big news and good news for him. Sad news for the city of Edina.
That is for us. Russ, we might also ask Commissioner Chandler what she's doing with her time at present.
I'll be brief because we're over time here. I completed the merger of Madeline Island Chamber of Music with McPhail Center for Music, and that was formally accomplished a couple of weeks ago. And I was appointed the Vice President of Development at McPhail Center for Music.
Congratulations.
So things have changed in a very good way.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Susan.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And if anybody wants to learn about nonprofit mergers, I can give you very long saga.
Fabulous. Oh,
I
wonderful.
love it.
And the last thing is just, again, encourage everybody to vote.
Yes.
Important. So thank you. We need.
We'll have to have a motion second for adjournment, Russ.
Yeah, I was about to do that.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All right. I heard Heather.
Favor, say aye.
I'm sorry, you can't. I got a call. Who moved originally?
Susan Chandler.
Thank you, Susan. All right, here we go. Last names only. This is I for adjournment. Ruben.
Yes.
Isaacs.
Aye.
De Lorenzo.
Aye.
Morgan Nelson. Martin.
She had a sign off.
All right. Kakamala.
Aye.
Sorensen.
Aye.
Yella.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Chandler.
Aye.
Suko.
Aye.
And Klein.
No.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, thank you. Great work. It's much more difficult this way, but
Great conversation.
Susan, send me whatever you end up with. And we'll go from there.
Russ, I think I'm going to work on that first thing tomorrow. So if you've got any time to take a peek at it before I submit it, I'd love that. Peggy, if you want to be part of that. Oh, she's gone. Peggy could be a part of that.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.